Welcome to Virginia Focus. I'm Rebecca Hughes of the Virginia News Network. Insurance fraud is not a victimless crime. The FBI estimates that over a 10-year period, insurance fraud cost the average U.S. family between $4,000 and $7,000 in increased premiums. In Virginia, the Virginia State Police have a group of highly skilled professional law enforcement personnel eager to fight insurance fraud. On today's episode, we're learning more from VSP Insurance Fraud Program Coordinator First Sergeant Peter Lazear. Thank you for coming on the show today. I'm anxious to hear more about your fraud program.
Thank you for having me. I love the opportunity to speak with you and reach some of the citizens of Virginia and talk about insurance fraud and how it affects each and every single one of us.
So it's been a couple years since you and I have talked about this. Has the situation in Virginia with fraud gotten better or worse?
I'm actually pleased to say that in the last year, we've seen a significant decrease in all of our numbers. So not only the cases that are referred to the insurance fraud program, but also the amount of money that criminals have collected, or at least attempted to collect. For instance, from 2022 to 2023, we saw 82% decrease in the fraudulent claims that were collected. That's huge. And we still see over $11 million in attempted fraudulent claims. That was the 2023 number. But again, that was down 24% from the year before. So we have 23 special agents that work for the insurance fraud program. And I like to think that because of their work, because of the arrests they've made, and some of this publicity and getting the word out there that it's working, our cases are going down. That's a good thing.
Yeah, that is a good thing. That was my next question is, do you think it's partially because of this campaign? Do you think there are other contributing factors?
I do. I think that sometimes it's overcoming the apathy towards insurance companies. And I know generally speaking, no one enjoys paying for insurance. You're paying for an uncertainty, and you may not ever be able to collect on that. So the mentality of a lot of people that I interact with in the public is that they feel entitled, they feel deserved. So for instance, if they have a small fire in their kitchen, they might lie and say that it extended to the bedroom or the living room, and like, hey, here's a chance to get a free TV. And what they don't realize is that they're committing a felony when they do that in Virginia. And so we like to bring awareness to it. So one of the ways we do that is by speaking publicly, by running advertising campaigns. And for me, it's getting in front of civic groups and public groups and talking about this and bringing awareness to it. And so I think that's played a big factor in why our numbers are down. This is one of those fields where you want your numbers to be down. And your audience may not know that by state code in Virginia, anytime an insurance carrier suspects insurance fraud, they are required to report it to the insurance fraud program. So that is a tremendous amount of work in my office. So we're receiving 2,500 to 3,000 referrals every single year for these type of things. So that's why I'm happy when I see that the number of referrals are down, because that means the carriers don't suspect as much insurance fraud. You think we're very fortunate to have 23 agents that are dedicated full time to these types of investigations. But the flip side is that they're handling hundreds of cases each. And so, of course, we have to prioritize. But they made 52 arrests last year, and that doesn't sound like a huge number when you think about traffic information or traffic citations. But in the criminal investigative world, that's huge. That means that 52 people got put in handcuffs, got taken before juries or judges, and had to answer for these felonies. And we don't deal in misdemeanors. All of these crimes involving insurance fraud are class 6 or higher felonies. So you're facing some significant prison time and fines. And I think the public's just not really aware of that. So I think it's great that I can come and speak with you and make people's eyebrows raise and go, oh, wow, maybe I should think twice before I fake this damage on my car or lie about my claim to my insurance company.
Right, for sure. What are some of the places that you've been doing your public speaking? Is it like schools and stuff like that, or what kind of areas?
Well, that's a great question. I have an opportunity to be in front of the insurance industry a lot. And so I've spoken with executives from most of the major insurance groups, whether it's by Zoom, Teams, or what I prefer in person. And I have a presentation that I give to them to make them aware of what insurance fraud is. Most of them are, but specifically what the Virginia State Police is looking for in a good case. And so I feel like through that work, I've improved the quality of cases that are coming to us. I mean, let's be honest, we are a state police agency, so we don't have the resources to investigate a $50 claim, a $100 fraudulent claim. We just don't simply have the time. And so we're looking for the cases that are involving a little bit more loss. But in terms of the public, we have a whole public outreach side of our program where we have marked vehicles that have our logos all over them. And they go out to public events like community events, fairs, even car shows, and neighborhood watch groups. And so my agents and I have been before these groups over the past year, met with them, shared a little presentation. We bring some swag and hand out some free items, as a reminder. And I will do whatever we can to build awareness of this problem, because ultimately it means that consumers will pay less for insurance if we can reduce this crime.
Yeah, definitely. And the insurance rates in Virginia are just through the roof crazy.
Yeah. I can't speak to that, but I can say that we paid almost $16 billion in property insurance last year alone. That's just Virginia. And the insurance fraud program is such a unique facet of the state police because we are not funded through the general budget or through the governor's office. We are funded completely through 0.05% of your property insurance. And so that works out to anywhere between $6 and $8 million a year that we have to work with this program to fund these positions and this training opportunities and advertising. And so we have a really, really unique interest in this. And so we are kind of the defenders for these insurance companies. We don't work for them, but we work alongside them and with them. And we partner with agencies like the State Corporation Commission. They have the Bureau of Insurance. And that agency handles kind of the regulatory side of insurance. So they're a little bit different than us. We come at it from the criminal aspect. They come at it from the license and regulatory side. But over the past couple of years, I've worked hard to build personal relationships with the managers of these other programs and work together to try and bring awareness to this crime. But I also got involved with what's called the National Fraud Directors Group. So there are almost every state in the U.S. has a program similar to ours. And so those directors, we get together once a year somewhere in the country and meet for 3 or 4 days and talk through what are your successes, what are your problems, what are your legislative problems. One of the things that really is difficult for us here in Virginia is that we are one of only 2 states in the nation that does not have a law on the books specifically for insurance fraud. So all of our cases in Virginia must be prosecuted as obtaining money by false pretense. That's really the only code section that applies. So we're up against quite a hurdle when it comes to prosecuting some of these cases where you may lie when you apply for a policy and therefore receive a discount. Say, for instance, your vehicle's being housed in New York City, but you live or you are also in a jurisdiction in Virginia. You can lie to your insurance company and say, yeah, my car's here in Virginia, and you get a lower rate than if you admitted that it was actually housed in New York City. That's called rate evasion, but it's extremely difficult to prosecute because we can't prove that you actually received money. You received a discount, but in the eyes of the courts, that's not traditionally seen as received money. So until we get a stronger law in the books, which we are working towards behind the scenes, it can be difficult to work through some of these cases and some of these prosecutions. So the fact that we have hundreds and hundreds of cases that do make it to a prosecutor is, I think, a feather in our cap. So we work with the best that we can. So getting back to the National Fraud Directors Group, I meet with other fraud directors from other states and say, how did you successfully get your legislation passed? How is it worded? What can I work with our General Assembly to get this type of law on the books? So I love outreach. I love speaking publicly. It's an unusual habit. I know that someone would enjoy that, but I'm so passionate about this program that I just want to get in front of both the public, lawmakers, and the industry and try and just clean things up and streamline things and make it easier to prosecute these types of cases.
I love that. So if I understand correctly, though, all these insurance companies, they already have their own fraud investigators too. So do you guys only get the biggest of the big cases and they handle, some smaller things? Is that how that works?
Yeah, that's a great question. Usually it's a concurrent investigation. So for instance, you take someone that intentionally sets fire to their house, and let's say they want to collect the insurance money from that. The insurance industry will run their own investigative team and conduct a civil investigation where they determine whether they should or should not pay the claim. At the same time, Virginia State Police will conduct our investigation, and we'll have an agent that determines whether a crime was committed. So the two, by law, can share information back and forth without being subject to the Freedom of Information Act, without requiring a warrant or subpoena. We do have a good law in place to allow the insurance industry to share their investigative efforts with state police and vice versa. So I think the public needs to know that it's you're facing an uphill battle if you're attempting insurance fraud, because you've got two different entities with two different interests, both the insurance company and the state police, that are coming at the same incident from very different angles. And one of them could land you in prison, and the other one could land you with no payout. And so both, money and your freedom are important to most people.
Yeah.
So yeah, we run them concurrently, and it works really well. I personally was involved in one where it saved the insurance company $80,000 because through my investigation, I revealed some details, and then through theirs, they investigated and revealed details. Together, we put together a phenomenal case, and I testified at both the civil trial and at the criminal trial, as did the investigator from the insurance company. We testified at each other's trials, and the person was not only convicted of arson and of obtaining money by false pretenses, but also they were not paid out for that claim. So it's a win-win, but they do run hand in hand.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. I can't imagine setting your house on fire. I mean, I guess I get it if you're desperate, but wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, we see a lot of that, unfortunately, along with other crimes. There's three major categories that we follow, and that is for our investigations, and the biggest being property fraud. So that's the type of thing where you're staging a crash or lying about damage to your vehicle or your property. We also investigate a lot of casualty fraud, where people are faking accidents or injuries and then claiming benefits for that, submitting false medical bills. And then the last, of course, is workers' compensation, where people are collecting benefits from the Workers' Compensation Commission, but not actually being hurt or injured. And those are the ones that are I hesitate to use the word fun, but it's the person who says they have a massive back injury and can't work, but then we have them on video jumping on a trampoline with their kids. It's kind of revealing to see. And so when you go to prosecute something like that, it's very easy to present to a jury that type of evidence and say, how can you prove that they're not that they're not lying? I mean, clearly they're lying. So those actually work out pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. Now, okay, so what about the cases where you have, let's say, legitimate damage to your house, you hire a contractor, and the contractor stiffs you? Do you guys handle that too, or is that someplace different entirely?
Yeah, there's a gray area we get into. We don't investigate general fraud. So we get requests sometimes for identity theft, for contractor fraud. Those are separate laws that aren't really under our necessary jurisdiction for this unit. We have other facets of the state police that are happy to look into that. Typically, those kind of cases will go to your local law enforcement, your sheriff's office, your police department before they come to us. But you do get kind of a crossover there, because you're right, a contractor can sometimes do unscrupulous things that are illegal and mislead the innocent. And so we actually prosecuted a case like this in the Roanoke Valley that I would love to tell you about. It was a good case. So we received a report of a contractor that was basically cold knocking on doors and claiming that these people had roofing damage. And what they would actually do is the homeowner would allow them access to the roof, and this unscrupulous contractor would go up on the roof and cause damage, take a hammer, physically damage the roofing of the house. And then they would provide pictures to the homeowner and say, look, you can see that your roof is really damaged and needs to be replaced. But because we're so nice, we're going to replace it at no cost to you. We're going to cover your deductible, and we're going to let the insurance company pay for it. So after this happened a few times, people started to catch on. And in a lot of cases, they never came back. They would file paperwork with the insurance company, and they would never actually perform the repairs. So we started to develop this case in 7 different jurisdictions around the Roanoke Valley of Virginia. And we had victims who filed a claim with their insurance company and gave the payout check to the contractor who never actually did the work. We also have insurance companies that paid this contractor, and then the work was never done. So one of our agents conducted a lengthy investigation, actually over several years, and found that this company had deposited over $1.2 million worth of insurance checks into their bank account. It got big. It got really big, even for our office. They identified 34 different victims out of 7 jurisdictions, some of whom have paid, I think the total was around $117,000 out of pocket from these victims. So this was brought to trial before judges and juries in the various jurisdictions. And this company was found guilty of, really 2 individuals in the company were found guilty of all the charges. And the charges stacked up. There were 3 people involved that were charged. There was conspiracy to commit these felonies. There was over 60 charges. And then, of course, spanning the jurisdictions, it's like having a new trial in every jurisdiction. That's at the state level. That's how it works. Each county has their own court system.
Right.
So we went to extensive lengths to provide testimony and provide the evidence. So to get a conviction in each county is pretty telling. So in this case, the entire thing was brought to our attention by another member of the contracting crew who finally had the forethought to say, this isn't right. This doesn't seem legal. So he actually filmed his coworkers causing the damage to the roof at great risk to himself, pulled out his phone and provided our agent with a video of all of this happening, which is very, very good evidence for us to use in court. And so part of our insurance fraud program at its core is our desire to solicit information from the public, even contractors. And so when he came to us with this information, we realized that he was eligible for a reward. And so by providing this information, I mentioned he put himself at great risk. He was a roommate with one of the suspects. He started to get threats to his life as they made the connection that this person was involved with the company. And so in exchange for his very small part in this scheme, he provided a tremendous amount of testimony, and he was an excellent witness for the Commonwealth, and eventually ended up having to flee the state for his own safety. So the moral of the story is that we submitted this to our reward process, and he received a reward in excess of $17,000 in his pocket because of all of the fraud that he prevented and revealed through his testimony and through the video. So this is a great case where someone knew something was being done illegally, and they reported it, and they followed through. And it's a way for the public to actually make a little bit of money. And in the end, we locked up several people for this incredible scheme. And I mean, one of the guys was living a lavish lifestyle. He bought himself a Maserati. He bought a boat. He had multiple houses. He was paying expensive bar tabs. Like everywhere he went, he was a hero. But in reality, he was committing felonies and really ripping off the homeowners because they ended up with a damaged roof that they didn't have beforehand and no payout, no new roof.
Right.
So this is a great case for us, the program, where it went from beginning to end. Someone reporting the information, it leading to working closely with one of our special prosecutors who's in place specifically in the city of Salem to prosecute regionally for these types of cases, and working together with the insurance industry and bringing these people to justice. And in the end, deservedly so, this person received a hefty reward, and we were happy to pay it. So hopefully that motivates some of your listeners to know, when they hear their friend talking about embellishing an insurance fraud claim, you can report that to us. And you can't necessarily be anonymous, but because we won't know who to pay, but we can certainly keep everything confidential, and we keep it in-house internally within the state police. And so your identity does not have to be revealed, but we accept tips at our website, stampoutfraud.com. There's a bright green submit a tip button, or you can call our hotline, which is 1-877-62-FRAUD, F-R-A-U-D. And it can actually pay out. So I love that story. I'm happy I could share it with you.
Yeah, I am too. Now, I do have a question.
Sure.
As the homeowner who basically got, stiffed, obviously their insurance premiums went up for a time, and did they receive any, compensation, or what's the word I'm looking for? Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. In many of the jurisdictions, restitution was ordered, and so these people will have to pay back. Also, in most of the cases, the insurance company was also paid back. Because if you think about it, the insurance company was a victim in some cases, and the homeowner themselves were victims in others. So yes, the court did order restitution in many of those cases. Not all of it. That's just the conservative nature of the courts. But I don't have the exact figures as to what they were paid back, but many of the homeowners did receive some of their money back.
Okay. And then I would hope that would also clear whatever record there is of, I guess, that claim, so they can get the lower rates again, right?
Yes, of course. Yes, that claim is not held against them. Once it's proven to be insurance fraud, it's not like a regular claim for that person. It's not held against their history and shouldn't affect their rates at all. Like you said, maybe temporarily until this is sorted out, but 2-3 years of an investigation, it takes some time to do that. So that's why these people are just victims, innocent
Right.
people. So that's just my advice to consumers and to the public is apply common sense. And if someone knocks on your door that you didn't invite and they tell you that you have roof damage and they can get you a new roof for free, that's a red flag. And it's something that we are trained to look for, and something that I want the public to be aware of and look for, is to ask questions. Call their insurance carrier before you commit to anything, and certainly before you give anyone money.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so here's a question. I do know that Virginia just passed where they're going to start requiring car insurance for the first time.
Yep.
How is that going to affect your office, or do you think it will?
I don't know if it will affect us too much. We have a lot of cases now where people claim to have insurance when they don't. We have people that stage accidents or commit insurance fraud through injuries. We had an example last year where near Richmond, Virginia, we had a group of men that drove up in a car and parked on the side of the street. They got out and spent about an hour talking, looking around. We know all this because there happens to be a camera mounted on the telephone pole for the community. And so we have all this. We don't have audio. We have all this on video.
Right.
So for about an hour, they walk around the car, they look at it, they talk. All four of them get back in the car. They back up, and then they accelerate quickly right into a telephone pole. About a second after the impact, all four of them, as if they were rehearsed and on cue, slam their heads forward. Almost like you could almost hear them count down 1, 2, 3, go. And simultaneously after the impact, they all throw their heads forward. They get out, they're holding their necks, and lo and behold, all four of them claim injury from a car crash with the insurance company. So fortunately, the insurance company thought this was suspicious. The facts didn't add up, and they reported it to us. And it was investigated, and of course, it was found to be a crime. It was completely staged, completely made up. And so, they face prison time, and that case is working its way through the courts now. But so far, it's gone very well for law enforcement, not so well for the four individuals.
Right.
So I don't know if the law changing requiring insurance is going to change much. I think criminals will still be criminals. You'll still have people operating without insurance. And of course, they'll be facing an additional charge. But it's kind of like the auto theft world. Sometimes the easiest crime is the one they commit. So if you leave your keys in your car, they're probably going to take it. So if they think insurance companies are easy victims, then they're going to take advantage of that. And so I think it's great that we can talk in open forums like this and say, you know what, the insurance companies are looking. And you might think Geico or Farm Bureau, they're a huge company. They don't care about Peter. They don't care about this small little claim. But they do. They do. And so I would ask anyone to think twice before trying to commit insurance fraud.
Yeah, I think the guys that put on that performance for you, I think that video should be used in your presentations.
Yep. I think it was 2022. There's an organization called the Coalition Against Insurance Fraud, and they conducted an extensive study into the actual losses from insurance fraud, and that resulted in a number of almost $309 billion annually in the U.S. that is lost to insurance fraud. So this is a huge crime, and it's not victimless, because the end result of that is that Virginians pay about $1,000 a year extra in all of their insurance premiums to cover the cost of this fraud. So you think, it doesn't affect me. Insurance is just expensive. This is part of the reason why insurance is so expensive, because we all pay for this crime. It's unique that way. And I think as a consumer, I'm a Virginia resident. I pay insurance to all these vehicle insurance and homeowners and all these types of insurance. But it occurs to me now, with my perspective from being this statewide coordinator, as I realize, the more fraud of this that I can stop, then the less our rates will be. And these insurance companies, of course, are for profit, but at the same time, they need customers. So if they price themselves out of business, they want customers. So there is an incentive there for our premiums to be lowered.
Yeah, definitely. So has your office been able to shrink a little since the crime is shrinking a little? And if it is that good or bad?
Well, I think for us, no. Our numbers fluctuate around 23 to 28 agents, depending on assignments and so forth. But I'm happy that the quality of our cases have improved. So while our numbers are down, the quality of the submissions that we're receiving from insurance carriers and from the public is up, and that's great. For instance, when I came into this program to run it a couple years ago, I realized that we weren't always collecting the jurisdiction. So the primary element of our crime is not only obtaining the money, but right behind it is that it occurred in Virginia, and specifically what county. And so I modified the form, I updated the website, and I had all that in place so that now we're capturing the city or county and the state, so that immediately we know where to send it. The state police is a large agency, so we are divided into 7 different divisions. around the state. So I need to know which division of the state police to send it to. So if it occurs in Henrico County, that's very different than if it occurs in Halifax County, so I need to know where to send it. So I'm trying to streamline these things and make it a little bit easier. But that means the information we get from the insurance companies is better. They're conducting a little bit more investigation ahead of time. So that means we're much more likely to take a look at it. So I'm happy that we have 23 people right now, because some states have much fewer. And talking with my counterparts in other states, they're happy to have 9 people, and they might be handling twice the number of referrals that we are. So we're very fortunate to have the statutory requirement for this insurance fraud fund that covers all of this, because we have a tremendous amount of resources. So I feel grateful, and I hope our numbers don't drop, at least in terms of the personnel.
Yeah, definitely. Is there any way that growing your office would benefit? Would you be able to do more? That, and if there were some insurance fraud laws on the books compared to other states, say surrounding states, how would that change the penalties or how your office does their job?
I think that it would create more work for us, but that's a good thing. Like every law enforcement agency in 2024, we are hurting for people. We need qualified people to become police officers in this country. And so we overall as an agency are missing a significant portion of positions. They're available. There's just no bodies to fill them. And so our agents are tasked with a lot of duties. And in one case, you might have an agent whose primary job is investigating insurance fraud, but they are also a blood spatter expert. They're also a crime scene technician. They're also like a 3D digital scanner expert. And so they're pulled in a lot of different directions. So more people would help tremendously, because they could commit more time. And so you might have a 6-month investigation, or in the case of Roanoke, 2 to 3 years that it takes to investigate this massive crime with millions of dollars. We could shrink that significantly with more people. Now, if the laws were changed, then we would obviously receive or investigate more cases. I think about application fraud. Many people are hesitant to list their new teenage driver on their automobile policy because their rates will increase so much. So they just leave it on. Well, then their teenager drives the car and gets in a crash, and they file an insurance claim, and oftentimes they'll lie about who was driving, or they'll just try and skirt the fact. Well, that type of application fraud is another case where we can't prosecute that, because they didn't receive money, they received a discount. And so those types of cases would explode for us if we had the statutory ability to investigate those types of cases, or the one I referred to where your car is housed in a different state, something you do to evade that rate. We would have a lot more prosecutions. Those cases are fairly simple to prove. So in that case, we might actually ask for more bodies. The fund is big enough each year that we have more than enough resources. It's so unique. I'm entering my 27th year with the state police, and most of my career I've been told there's no money. We can't afford that. We are a state government agency. We don't have a surplus. We get excellent training and equipment, but above and beyond that, it's not there. So in this program, it's the opposite problem. We have a tremendous amount of funding, and that's because we're paying so much for insurance in this state that small portion that comes to the insurance fraud fund is still significant. And so we have surplus funds that we would love to put towards that, but we don't necessarily have the young troopers who have joined the state police, who are moving up through the ranks to get into the insurance fraud program. The pipeline's not there. So now we have a tremendous recruiting effort going on department-wide, trying to bring in qualified applicants to become state troopers. And, when I applied in the 90s, we had 3,000 applicants for 60 positions. So I'm honored to be here. It's a privilege for me to have made that cut and become a Virginia State Trooper. But now we have 1/10 of that many people applying, and our protocols haven't necessarily changed. We still have we're known for having a tough police academy. You live here predominantly throughout the week. You don't get to go home at night. And for 6 months, you learn everything you need. And so we try to get people that are willing to commit to that, and that's just harder these days. So I like your logic. I would love to see this program expand. I'm always looking for ways to do that, but it can be tough.
Yeah. So we're at the end of our time, but I want you to plug your website one more time so people know if they want to report fraud, what do they need to do?
Absolutely. Visit stampoutfraud.com to learn more about the program, to submit a tip, or to even request us to come to your community event. There's a page there for that. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And the whole month of June, we'll be running an advertising campaign. So you'll be seeing us on television, on digital platforms, and even on some of the streaming services like Spotify, Pandora.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time today. You always bring so much information and help us understand things that much better.
No, you bet. Thank you for having me.
I hope you've enjoyed today's show. Thanks for tuning into the show on your favorite local radio station. You can now listen to this show or past shows through the iHeart app or on iHeart.com. Just search for Virginia Focus under podcasts. I'm Rebecca Hughes with the Virginia News Network, and I'll be here next week on Virginia Focus.